It's easy to talk about Fannie and Freddie in the mortgage market as this large esoteric thing, $13 trillion, Wall Street, blah, blah, blah. This is people trying to buy a home. That's it. People are just trying to buy a home. Don't mess this up. Hello and welcome to Let Me Ask You This, brought to you by the California Association of Realtors. My name is Matt Roberts. I'm the CAR Federal and Local Government Affairs Director. Joining me as always is my colleague Mike Falk. And Mike, this episode we're going to wrap up our mini series on Fannie and Freddie, the government-sponsored enterprises, the GSEs, the enterprises, what they do, why they're important, and this is our fourth episode.
Mm-hmm.
In this episode, what we want to do is talk about considerations, hurdles, thoughts, discussions that are ongoing in DC about taking Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac out of conservatorship.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, when the GSEs were put into conservatorship back in, I think, 08, it was never intended to be permanent. So this conversation is something that, frankly, is just going to be an ongoing thing. And I think understanding what's at stake and what policymakers, whether in the White House or in Congress, need to pay attention to, and understanding that is really important.
Yeah. And it's funny. You talk about 2008 and when they went into conservatorship. And I'll always remember because it was actually the opening weekend of the NFL on a Sunday, September 7th. And I got this phone call from a friend at Fannie Mae. And it's just like, okay, Matt, turn on the news, keep your phone handy. It's about to get real.
What kind of phone did you have in 2008?
I might have, I think I had the Trio, the Palm Trio. It was great. It was a great phone. Actually,
yeah,
I still miss that phone.
Yeah.
But okay, so all right, so let's lay the foundation.
Sure.
Or when you think about considerations
of
taking Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac out of conservatorship, what's most important? What's the biggest, most important consideration?
Well, the thing that has to ground every conversation about getting Fannie and Freddie out of conservatorship needs to be grounded with keeping affordable mortgage credit available for, consumers. And that has a lot of aspects to it. We want to keep the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, obviously. You'd want to keep the rate lock. And, you'd want to also keep structures within Fannie and Freddie that keep the availability of that credit when the market is in a downturn. Keeping that credit available and affordable has to be kind of the guiding light, I would say.
Yeah, and that's really why Fannie and Freddie were created, is to ensure that a qualified buyer, regardless of market conditions, if they're qualified, they can walk in any bank and the bank has money to loan them. And so I think you put it great that it's protecting mortgage capital availability, but really protecting also the benefits that the current system has, that 30-year fixed rate. And you mentioned rate lock. I think it's kind of, if someone hasn't bought a home, or maybe they only bought a home once and it was a long time ago, the idea that you could make an offer on a home, it could take 30, 45, 60 days between when you make the offer and the loan closes. But during that time, your interest rate is not going to go up. Okay, so, for me, the first consideration in taking Fannie and Freddie out of conservatorship to ensure that we're protecting mortgage capital is really getting Congress and the administration to work together, that this should be a bipartisan effort to pull them out.
Yeah. I mean, You, I think, mentioned the process of getting Fannie and Freddie out of conservatorship. I think you plagiarized it from somebody, but it's like performing open heart surgery on a bike rider while he's riding a race, and
But
you're
knee
going to need
replacement.
knee replacement. I don't know which of those two procedures is harder, but
Although it could be
you know,
either one when you're talking about
yeah,
something this big. It could be
right.
both.
And so you have to be very deliberate. You have to be very careful. You have to be working together because any kind of, misstep or overlooking certain details can just have really big spillover effects for home buyers, for investors, for a whole lot of folks. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, keeping everybody in the loop and making that tent as big as possible, I think is really crucial.
Yeah, and I think it allows for the protection of a number of items that you really need for a functioning mortgage market with Fannie and Freddie. It
Mhm.
allows to for the protection of the public role and mission. Again, Fannie and Freddie, they they were created by Congress with this public charge
Right.
to provide mortgage market liquidity. And so if you're going to take them out of conservatorship, you want to protect that. Um, you also
Yeah.
want to be able to ensure that that there's a strong regulatory oversight. While they're in conservatorship, Fannie and Freddie essentially have to do whatever FHFA says. I mean, FHFA is essentially running
Right.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac right now. You want to make sure that their regulator still has strong authority once they do come out of conservatorship.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. And even to take that a step further, I mean, at every stage of the process, you're going to want to almost err on the side of very cautious in the sense of you want to be transparent about everything. Investors don't like uncertainty. So, whatever changes and tweaks or whatever the plan is, there's a $13 trillion mortgage backed security market that's going to be very interested in what those changes are going to be and when they're going to happen. And I know, we're talking about investors like they need a bunch of help, but I think even for I mean, mostly for home buyers, that uncertainty, there's got to be very, very transparent, clear communication about what the plan is.
Well, yeah, and I think you can really put it under a larger umbrella of market considerations, right?
Yeah.
You said it's a $13 trillion market. If investors get spooked, a lot of people may think, well, it's $13 trillion market. Investors got spooked. Ooh, boo-hoo to the investors. But no, people need to understand that if the market gets spooked, investors panic,
Right.
rates shoot up,
Right.
and now somebody who just qualified to buy a home for 6.5, well, suddenly they walk into the bank the next day and the rate's 7%. Well, what just happened? Well, the market got spooked
Hmm.
and investors panicked. And
Right.
so to your point, you got to have that transparency. Okay, Mike. So let me ask you this. Are there any considerations that are specific or would impact California more when the government's thinking or looking at taking Fannie and Freddie out of conservatorship?
Yes, I think that one thing they're going to want to keep their eye on are loan limits. When
Yep,
you're in a high cost state like
good
us,
point.
you know, making sure that those loan limits are, you know, in touch with the reality of what it costs to buy a home in a state like California and increasingly across the country is going to be really crucial to, again, keep that mortgage credit available and keep people, coming into banks and taking out mortgages.
Yeah, and I think it's important that people understand that because Fannie and Freddie currently backed by the government, you know, um, public role and mission to provide mortgage capital to the housing markets, but they do have a limit of how large of a mortgage they can provide a guarantee for.
Right.
And it's really a question of equitable access to that mortgage capital because there is a loan limit and our cost of housing in California is so high.
So, Matt, one thing we've talked a lot about during this series is, yes, Fannie and Freddie are these large, complicated entities. But we've also explained the ways that, in reality, what they do is very fundamental and very simple. So, like, if you had one parting thought about the possibility of taking the GSEs out of conservatorship, I mean, what do you think? I mean, what should folks remember?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's really the question, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what does it all come down to?
Yeah.
And you've got this $13 trillion mortgage market. You've got
It's impressive.
billion-dollar companies investing in it.
Also impressive.
But I think what it really comes down to, and what people forget, is it really comes down to just home buyers trying to get a home.
Yeah.
And if this is done wrong, it's not really Wall Street that's going to pay the price. It's everyday Americans that just want to buy a home, that want to walk into a bank, get a mortgage, and buy a home, have a yard to throw the ball, a dining room to have family and holiday dinners at.
Mm-hmm.
They just want the American dream.
Yeah.
And so the parting thought is, you know what? Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
And keep the American home buyer, really at the center thought of taking Fannie and Freddie out of conservatorship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, for me, that's what it stands on. But I have to ask, when's the last time you've gone in your yard and thrown a ball?
With my kid, it's been a while. With my dog, this morning.
Oh, nice. All right. Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
All right, Mike. So this really wraps up the mini series we're doing on Fannie and Freddie.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah. You didn't think it was going to be?
Well, you and I love it because we love talking about Fannie and Freddie and geeking out about the mortgage market. For those of you that made it through all 4 episodes, 1, hopefully you drank as much as we did. But 2, thank you for coming along on this ride with us as we talk about the mortgage market. Because again, $13 trillion. I mean, Fannie and Freddie are half of it. You can't overstate how important this issue is.
Yeah, as Ron Burgundy says, it's kind of a big deal.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
So thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode of Let Me Ask You This. Deanne, good luck editing this one, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you later.
What? You're still here? Well, you want to know why Fannie and Freddie went into conservatorship? Because they had a weak regulator, their reserves were razor thin, and their portfolio was filled with subprime crap. But they're not allowed to put anything in portfolio anymore. They're building their reserves. And if Congress works with the administration, they can build a permanent, strong regulator. Go home. Go on.